Shalom, everyone. It is the 27th day of the Omer. I hope you're counting and enjoying and paying attention to the beauty in the world and all those things that count. We're going to turn to page 99 for Elohai Neshama. Just 2 words we're going to start with. You can just sing those or sing all the words with me. Just take a moment to breathe, to think of the beauty of each blade of grass and the beauty of the sunshine and the beauty of spring. And let's join together. Continue page 141, Psalm 150. If you feel like dancing, if you're in the temple in your seats with your hands, I think, and all of you out there at home, just bring it. Hallelujah. Ozi v'zimra. Ya. Third line from the end. Ozi v'zimra ya. Vayahi Lishua. Ozi v'zimra ya. Vayahi Lishua. Ozi v'zimra ya. Vayahi Lishua. Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed. You may be seated.
Welcome here to Temple Aliyah, inside our sanctuary again. Let me hear it from everybody here. Oh, doesn't it feel great to be back inside your sacred home, to feel a connection in ways that you can't imagine? And those of you who are at home, we are still working with figuring out how do we still bring together you into the sanctuary, and how do we come into your living rooms or wherever you are? How do we have the sense of connectedness as we enter back into life, right? As people become accustomed to it, as people get vaccinated and feel a little bit safer and things change, that we can come together. It's going to take time, doesn't it? It takes a little bit. How many of you, right, those of you who are here and out there, how many of you are still a little uncomfortable when you're in larger groups after 15 months? How many of you are still a little bit uncomfortable? Right? Is there a little bit of you that said, well, you've been doing brisses, you've been doing a couple of things, small groups, but the idea that all of a sudden there's this immediate reaction of like, oh, wait a minute, am I supposed to be around a lot of people? Wait a minute. There's something internal that happens after 15 months in which you go, this isn't quite right. And it takes time for the human soul to, if you will, transition back. And that's what this is all about. We're there with you. We're here with you. And that's what it means to come together. The Baruch Hu is about community, about those who, no matter where you are now, we are part of a virtual community, part of an in-person community. I'm going to ask you all to rise, page 149 for the Baruch Hu.
Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, la 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 la. Let me hear you. Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Your turn.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la la la. Ya la 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 la, ay la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Ya la la la, ya la 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 hi la la hi la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue on page 153 with Or Chadash.
Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, Ve'nizkeh kulanu mehera le'oro. Ay, 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 Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, Ve'nizkeh kulanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai ha'etzer ha'me'orot.
We turn to page 154, Ahava Rabbah.
Rabba ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla gedola v'tera chamalta aleinu Avinu malkeinu Ba'avur avotenu שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו תלמדנו אבינו האב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה והארנו בתורתך ודבק לבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש לעולם ועד ולא נבוש לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול הנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
Kazan Mimi started off our service by reminding us that today is the 27th day of the Omer. And, I think people say that counting the Omer is the easiest and the hardest mitzvah. It's the easiest because all you have to do each night is just say a quick little blessing and a quick little line counting the day. How much easier could it be, right? Much easier than fasting on Yom Kippur, observing Shabbat, praying. This is just so quick and easy. But it's also the hardest because you have to remember to do it each and every evening. And that's hard for 49 days. It's hard not to miss one. And I think the Omer reminds us how important it is to be present, how important it is to know, what is today? What does today mean to me? Where are we in the calendar? And what's important to me about this day? So as we start preparing for the Shema, hopefully we can take a minute and bring ourselves into this present moment. If you're in the sanctuary, maybe it's your first time being in the sanctuary in a long time. I'm jealous of you all and hope to be there soon myself. If you're in the sanctuary, what are you noticing around you that helps you pray, or maybe that distracts you from prayer? If you're at home in your living room, what are you noticing around you there that helps you pray or distract you from prayer? What are you grateful for in this present moment? Try to ground yourself in today, right now, this moment, this service. As we join together in preparation for the Shema, we'll bring together the four corners of our tzitzit. We're at the bottom of page 154, V'havienu.
V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'torichenu komemiut le'artzenu. Ki el poel Yeshuotata ubanu v'acharta mikol belashon b'keiravtanu l'shimcha agadol l'shimcha agadol zela be'emet להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל
We're excited to have Micah Gutman with us this morning, who's going to lead us in the Shema. We're on page 155. Micah, will ask you to unmute and take it away.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha uve'chol nafshecha uve'chol me'odecha v'chayu hadvarim ha'elu asher anochi metzalecha hayom alavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'tibarta bam v'shiteha bebeteha uvlefteha baderech uvshavteha uvekumeha ukshartam leot al yadeha v'hayu letotafot beineneha uvtavtam al mezuzot beiteha uvishareha.
Continue quietly to ourselves at the top of page 156. Micah is going to continue. We're in the middle of page 156 with Vayomer.
Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor daber al bnei Yisrael ve'amarta lehem Shulahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdehem ledotam v'nanu al tzitzit al kanaf petil tehelet v'haya lahem letzitzit oritem oto utatem et kol mitzvot Adonai ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחריהם, אשר אתם זורמים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם אלוהים. אני Adonai Elohim.
Excellent job, Micah. Thanks for being part of our service. We are going to continue now on page 158 with Micha Mocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהי לו עושה פלא, נורא תהי לו עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יא לה 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 לה. Please rise. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדחי נומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל.
We'll begin the Amidah together on page 159. We'll invite you to rise if you're not already. 159, we begin together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד אתה. מחכה חיים וחסד, מחיי מתים ורחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו ישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך מימי מחיה ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום. ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים כה, אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים כה, מתנסים לעומת שרפים, מתנסים לעומת שרפים, מתנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך? תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. בעינינו תראינה, תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. בעינינו תראינה, תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני
We'll continue the Amidah to ourselves quietly through page 166 in the Hebrew, in the English, or whatever prayers are in your heart.
עושה שלום במרומה הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו Avena Ose Shalom Imromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Ve'imru la 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 עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Kaddish Shalem, page 167.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ויעלמה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבם מבורך, לעלם לעלמי עלמיה, יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ותרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל בכתב שירתה תשבחת ונחמת אדם ירון בעלמה ויאמרו אמן תתקבל צלותון ובאות הון כל בית ישראל קדומו ושמיה ויאמרו אמן יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן עושה שלום במרמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו amen.
We are going to begin the Torah service, and now that we're back in our sanctuary, we are opening the ark for real, not just saying that we're symbolically opening the ark, but we're actually opening the ark. So we are going to invite up Stephanie Denmark and Helena Simon to open the ark, and Chazan Mimi will sing Ki Mitzion, page 168.
Be seated. All right, those of you who were at services, whether here live or by live streaming last week, Rabbi Galka, we're playing the same game. I think we didn't get a chance. It's a busy week, and right there you are. And so she's going to be giving the Devar Torah. That's clear. I'm supposed to give the introduction to the Torah. I don't know what her Devar Torah is. So as I said last week, there's a couple choices here. One, I'm going to step all over her, right, in terms of what she's going to talk about. But you'll never know it because she'll adapt, right, because she's that good. Second possibility is that I'm just going to set her up perfectly, and she's going to go right into it. The third possibility is I'm going to give her an introduction in which is just going to be so complicated, she just won't know how to make that connection to hers. But she's going to figure that out too. So, Rabbi Galka, let the games begin. All right? And those of you in the congregation, it's nice to watch her. So here's where we are in the Torah reading. Right? We are now in Leviticus towards the end. And we've been, right, Exodus, the Israelites leave Egypt. They get to Mount Sinai. They hear a bunch of laws at Mount Sinai. When they're there, they hear the Ten Commandments. Laws are coming down to them by Moses. By the way, if you ever want to look at an interesting section of Torah, look up Sefer HaBrit, the Book of the Covenant, of which we have no idea what it is, but Moses actually brings it down and reads it to the people, and we're not quite sure what it's about. And then the Israelites get the instructions about building the tabernacle, the golden calf. Episode happens. They build their tabernacle. That's the end of the book of Exodus. And then we get into Leviticus and all these laws about sacrifices and then about initiating the priests and initiating the tabernacle. And then the question is going to be, so what the heck is this for? Like, why are we building this thing? How are we going to take this experience? What is it going to mean to us? And so in the chapters of this week, which are some of my favorite chapters, right? The clergy here know this, are Acharei Mot and Kedoshim, especially Kedoshim, in which the Israelites were reminded about the values that they're supposed to be living out. right? That the tabernacle itself, the sacrifices themselves, the priesthood themselves, that's not what it's about. It's about behavior and how we treat others. And that's a reminder today. That's what it's about. All the rituals we do are supposed to help inspire our souls to be able to be better people. That's what Achrimot and Kedoshim is. And Rabbi Galko, I only hope I didn't step on you, but I look forward to hearing your Devar Torah in just a moment. As we this morning, you'll be able to follow the Torah reading beginning page 687. Those of you here in the sanctuary, if you haven't switched yet your prayer books for your Chumash, you can do so. Those of you at home, put down the Siddur prayer book. You can take out any prayer book that you have. But in fact, we're going to have it on the screen for you. I mean, see any Chumash Torah text, but we're going to put it on the screen for you as well. We're going to begin the Torah reading, page 687, or chapter 17, verse 8. You'll be able to find them. The Torah readers today are going to be on Zoom, and the people reciting the blessings are going to be live. And those who wish to follow the Torah reading themselves will be able to. So if you can anticipate, those of you who are here with, going to be called up. If you anticipate David Lorch, you're coming up, as Hazan Stein will officially call you forward, and Bob Epstein will will begin with the Torah reading.
Ya'amod, Ya'amod, David ben Shimon Rishon. Baruch et Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. Va'alechem tomar ish ish mi beit Yisrael umin hager asher yagur betocham asher ya'ale ola ozavach ve'el petach ochel moed lo yevienu la'asot oto ladonai benichrat ha'ish hahu me'amav ve'ish ish mi beit Yisrael umin hager hagar betocham asher yochal kol dam v'natati panai הנפש האוכלת את הדם וככרתי אותה מקרב עמה, כי נפש הבשר אדם היא, ואני נתתיו לכם על המזבח לכפר על נפשותיכם, כי הדם הוא בנפש יכפר. על כן אמרתי לבני ישראל, כל נפש מכם לא תאכל דם, והגר הגר בתוככם לא יאכל דם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
So as more and more people are starting to get vaccinated, we're starting to think about what it will be like to return to normal life. Some of you are in the sanctuary. I think we're all thinking about that in different ways. Will normal life be the same as it was before the pandemic? A lot of people have really gotten used to pandemic life in certain ways. Maybe we've even enjoyed certain aspects. Working from home in your pajamas, not having a commute, having more family time. And for some people, I think on that list is having fewer social obligations, fewer moments where you have to interact with others, even if you actually feel like staying home. So whether you found those silver linings in pandemic life or not, I think there's no doubt that we all formed habits during this time. And we're going to have to decide in the coming months if those habits are here to stay in our lives or not. We found new ways of marking time, right? Some people started baking challah on Fridays or going for a walk at a certain time when you would normally have your commute. New ways of socializing through Zoom, through technology. And the question that we're asking ourselves now is, which of those habits are we going to hold on to? And which do we want to break as we go back to our old lives? So Rabbi Vogel set me up so well, as always, in his introduction, talking about Acharei Mot and Kedoshim and how much he loves Kedoshim, these instructions about how we are meant to live holy lives. We're reading today from Kedoshim about, I think gives us a little bit of insight into how we form habits. The Israelites receive all these commandments, how we're going to live holy lives. We're presented with things that we can do to make ourselves and our lives holier. And one of those laws that has become very famous is you shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind, right? I think a lot of you probably know that line. It's that verse is quoted often. Do not insult the deaf, do not place a stumbling block before the blind. So on the surface, the meaning of this law is pretty obvious. Those who are deaf and those who are blind are some of the most vulnerable in our society. And so we need to treat them with respect and kindness. Certainly, we shouldn't do anything to make their lives even harder. But if you really think about it, here's the question that you might be asking yourself. Not placing a stumbling block before the blind makes sense, right? Someone who can't see physically might hurt themselves if you interpret it as a literal stumbling block. Even if you interpret it as a metaphorical one, someone who can't see something in particular and you've placed a stumbling block before them, either way, that person is going to hurt themselves on it more than someone who can see that stumbling block. But why is cursing the deaf such a problem? A deaf person wouldn't even hear the curse. Wouldn't it be more important to make sure not to curse a hearing person? So that's the question that Rabbeinu Bachya, a medieval Spanish rabbi, asks and tries to answer. He explains that do not curse the deaf isn't really about the deaf person at all, but about the speaker. He explains that if the Torah forbids us to curse the deaf person who doesn't hear it, and therefore doesn't feel angry or saddened by what we say, how much more so must we make sure not to curse someone who is able to hear us? So really, all of these laws in Kedoshim are designed to improve a person's basic character traits, to ensure that we ourselves don't become the victims of bad and kind of addictive habits. The prohibition on cursing the deaf isn't really based on the Torah's consideration of the victim, but for the protection of the person doing the cursing. We're not even supposed to mouth curses where they would have no effect, because otherwise we might get into the habit of uttering curses, and then one day we'll do it where they do cause harm. When we have to remember not to curse even the deaf, we're going to be doubly careful not to curse those who can hear us. His point here, Rabbeinu Bachya, is that we don't want to develop bad habits. Essentially, we're supposed to see every interaction we have as practice for how we want to walk in this world, even if we think the other person might not notice how we're treating them. So now I want you to think back to your most recent Zoom call. You're on Zoom with a friend, catching up with somebody, a family member. Were you answering emails while someone was talking to you? Or texting while someone shared how their day was going? We're all guilty of it. And the people you're Zooming with might not have even been able to tell. But the problem is that human beings are creatures of habit. And even though people might not know what you're doing on Zoom, obviously people notice in person what you're doing. And Rabbeinu Bachya teaches us that if we get in the habit of cursing the deaf, we end up cursing the hearing because we become accustomed to that way of behaving. Now, I want to be very clear that I don't think that getting distracted on Zoom is equivalent to cursing a deaf person. But it's a habit we've all gotten into that won't serve us well when we want to have those close in-person interactions. So it's time to start breaking those habits. It's time to start thinking about our values in social interactions from before COVID that will still apply after COVID. Smiling at strangers who walk past you, offering a hug to those in need, making eye contact with someone you're talking to in person, leaning in closer to make sure you can hear someone who talks quietly. We haven't thought about any of those things. The idea of a hug or leaning in closer, we haven't thought about any of those things. Instead, we're thinking, am I unmuted? Is my camera on? Am I using a Zoom background? And it was such a big adjustment for us to switch to those thoughts. And now we have to switch back, even when it's hard, even when it means breaking bad habits. Rabbeinu Bachya's interpretation of the commandment not to curse the deaf teaches us that breaking bad habits is hard. So it's important that we start to use this time now, this transitional time, to identify which of our COVID habits are worth sticking to and which ones will work to break. Luckily, I think our bad COVID habits probably aren't nearly as bad or as hard to break as cursing the deaf. So I think we'll be just fine as we learn to break them. We'll continue now with the second Aliyah. Bob Epstein is going to continue reading with Leviticus chapter 17, verse 13. You can find that in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, page 687. And first, Chazan Sign will call up for the Aliyah, Alex and Linda Romano.
Ya'amdu Yogev Sander ben Avraham Vasara Velaika Miriam Bat Chaim Veriva Sheni.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'ish ish mibnei Yisrael umin hager hagar betocham asher yatzur tzed chaya of asher ye'achel v'shafach et damo v'chisahu be'afar ki nefesh kol basar damo benafshohu ba'omar livnei Yisrael dam kol basar lo tochelu ki nefesh kol basar damo hi kol ochlav yikaret b'chol nefesh asher tochal nevela utrefa ba'ezrach uvager v'chi beis begadav v'rachatz b'mayim v'tamei ad ha'erev v'taher ve'im lo yechabes uvesaro lo yirchatz v'nasa avono.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nota B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
We're going to take a minute now and say a prayer for those in our community who are in need of healing. We know so many people even still are in need of healing from COVID-19 and other illnesses. So we'll join together now in Misha Beirach.
Before us, help us find
the healing of Elon Shayot, Dina bat Yocheved, Chaim ben Sarah, Ruvain ben Malka, Chana bat Fegel, Tikva bat Gila Elisheva, Rachel Sarah bat Leah, Shoshana bat Serel, Sarah bat Rachel, Susan Stavis, Lori Simon, Hinda bat Irene, Rachel bat Moshe Aharon, Casa Leah bat Adeline, Zachary Whedon, Paula Shayot, Yeshua David ben Fagel, Nikki Sandor, Zakit bat Masha, Ariel Harrison, Avram Hanani ben Esther Ita, Uri ben Yehudit, Megan Harris, Yisrael ben Basha, Amy Chandler, Annette Sklar, Asher Yona ben Miriam, and of course, everyone suffering from COVID-19. Continue now with the third Aliyah. Bob Epstein is going to keep reading for us. Page 688 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash, Leviticus chapter 18, verse 1. But first, Chazan Stein will call up Steve and Jody Levin for the Aliyah.
Ya'amdu Yeshayahu Aharon ben Chaim Veriva Brana bat Gedalia Shlishi.
Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Adonai, Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai, Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai, Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'aranu mikol ha'amin, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, ani Adonai Elohechem, kema'aseh Eretz Mitzrayim, asher yeshabtem ba, lo ta'asu, ukma'aseh Eretz Canaan, Asher ani mevi etchem shama lo ta'asu uvechukotechem lo techlechu et mishpatai ta'asu v'et hukotai tishmeru lalechet bahem ani Adonai Elohechem ushmartem et hukotai v'et mishpatai Asher ya'aseh otam ha'adam b'chai bahem ani Adonai.
Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yitkada v'yitkada Shemei Rabba V'yalma divrach erutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala uv'izman kariv B'meru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Lame'amaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yithaleh V'yithalal Shemei Kudusha Berichu Le'elamin Kol Birchata B'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma ve'imru Amen.
יעמדו חיים פנחס בן אהרון שמעון ובלה לב ויעל בת קודש ולאה רביעי
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim. V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Lo tignovu velo techachashu velo tishakeru ish ba'amito velo tishaveu bishmi la shaker vehilata et shem Elohecha ani Adonai lo ta'ashok et recha velo tigzol lo talin Pe'ula zahir, itecha ad boker, lo techalel hareish, belifnei iver, lo titain mikshol, vayiretam Elohecha ani Adonai.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ooh, Yasher Koach again to our Torah readers, Bob Epstein, and to Matthew Salovey. Nice to see you, Matthew. It's a pleasure. And for those of you who recited the blessings here, wasn't that a great feeling to stand in front of the Torah, to really have that sense of connection? If you know, it's a pleasure. And for those of you who recited the of liturgy, we can, I love technology. It's and Zoom, by the way, some people just come in for you. It's so nice, like Elijah, just come on in. We, if you know parts of the service, for example, when we take out the Torah, we didn't do it today, but part of the traditional service, we recite the Shema. Well, why do we recite the Shema there? I don't know if you know this. That stems from a time in which the Jews actually in Judea with the Romans were forbidden from reciting the Shema because they saw it, the Romans, as a call to arms. And so they would wait until the Roman centuries, and they knew to finish through the morning service of Shachrit. All right, they passed the time of Shema. They didn't do it. What do? We take out the Torah and we recite the Shema. Okay? By the way, if you know Aleinu in Sephardic traditions, the Aleinu has a piece that was not included in the Ashkenazi tradition. I don't know if you know this. It was excised, and it had to do with all of their gods, of our idols, if you will. Or they prayed to nothing, to Hevel. And that was part of it and taken out of our Aleinu. If you if you think about the Haggadah Passover we had not too long ago, you know that story where it says, and they came in, the students of Rabbi Akiva, and told him, oh, it's time for the Shema? You know this part? Like, you have to ask yourselves, why did students have to tell the rabbis it was time for Shema? Don't they know when it is? Of course they do. So what is that story really about? It's apparently the story of Rabbi Akiva and his students and others who were supporters of Bar Kokhba in the Bar Kokhba rebellion. And that they were meeting secretly, and that they had to tell them to leave before the sentries will come. Isn't that amazing, like how our liturgy and our holidays actually highlight a lot of these facts of history and things we have changed. Lag BaOmer is part of them. How many of you have heard of Lag BaOmer? Right, raise your hand. How many of you really know what Lag BaOmer is about? Right, Michael, we talk about it being the day on which the plague of the students of Rabbi Akiva were stopped. 22,000 who died. That's what the Talmud tells us. We go like, really? Like 22,000 and it stops? And like, that's the story? And that's where the counting of the Omer comes from. What is this about? Well, you have to know that Rabbi Akiva was the primary religious supporter of Bar Kokhba and the rebellion, right about 132, 135 in there. Following the destruction of the temple in 70, they assumed, right, the Romans and everybody before them, if you destroy the temple of the Israelites, of the Jews, you're done with them. Like, they're going to be done. They're going to, after a while, just cut off. And all of a sudden, the temple is destroyed in the year 70. There's some rebellions in diaspora, by the way, in the early 100s of the Common Era. And then Rabbi Akiva, right, and then Hadrian begins to know, like, the temple's gone, but they are still a pain in my, you know where. Those Jews, they just won't go away. And he creates some of the most restrictive actions against the Jews. You can't pray, right? You can't do anything outside. You can't act as a Jew. You can't do circumcision under all penalty of death. And then finally it was enough. And a general by the name of Bar Kosiba, that's his given name, right? Who becomes Bar Kochva by Rabbi Akiva. Kochav, those of you know who Hebrew is, a star. And because in the blessing when Balak blesses the Israelites, right, he says, their star shall rise out of Judah. And Bar Kokhba becomes that star. And he becomes a messianic figure, by the way. Now, according to the Talmud, he had 200,000 people fighting on his side by the beginning of the war. They actually decimated the Roman army in Judea, which is a task unto itself. By the end, by the way, he had Jews and non-Jews fighting with him, approximately 350,000 people. They had to bring in their best troops and generals, the Romans, from the north, from England, from Wales, and they had to bring them down to crush the Israelites finally, to crush the Jews. So there's a possibility here, by the way, that Lag BaOmer originally was a day on which it was a victory of Bar Kokhba and his fighters. By the way, you want to know how tough Bar Kokhba was? I don't know the relationship to the Japanese mafia or things, but he actually wanted to test the commitment of his warriors by having them cut off a finger. The rabbis, how do you think the rabbis would respond to that one? You think they're going to like that? No, they're not. So what did the rabbis say? They created a test, by the way, of strength and endurance. They said, riding a horse, you had to be able to pull a tree out and grab it by its roots. And that's how strong these warriors were. So this idea of the Lag BaOmer, this idea about that there was a plague probably relates to all of those in Rabbi Akiva's army, right, of Bar Kokhba, who died, right, who died fighting against, if you will, the Romans. And we kind of have it hidden in this holiday of ours. The story is remarkable. This is, by the way, the really beginning of diaspora for the Jews. They're dispersed all over, by the way. And they're, at the time, I don't know if you know this, according about the 1st century CE into the 2nd century CE in the Roman Empire, from Rome to Judea, it's estimated that 20% of the population was Jewish. That 20% of the population was Jewish. Isn't that remarkable, the numbers? But they knew that they had to squelch the Jews. And how do you do that? Well, some of you know the martyrdom service of Yom Kippur. When we list those rabbis who were martyred, Rabbi Akiva being chief amongst them, that's what Hadrian did. Hadrian killed all of the strongest and well-known rabbis in order to squelch and to end the soul of the Jewish people. But we know what happens. He didn't. I love these holidays of Lag BaOmer. We think about bonfires. If you've ever been in Israel, Michael, of course, right? Bonfires, right? Great celebrations and singing, a time of celebration during the counting of the Omer specifically. I like to remember these little hints about Jewish victories and how the Jews persevered throughout history itself. We're going to continue our service. This week, by the way, is Lag BaOmer on Friday. That's why we're talking about it, Thursday night, Friday. And we want to wish all of you a Lag BaOmer, a happy Lag BaOmer. And we're going to call upon now Anita Licksman, now we're going to call you in to our Zoom room. You're going to lead us in the prayer for the country, if you would please. To our Zoom room, you're going to lead us in the prayer for the country, if you would please.
Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, God of our ancestors, upon its inhabitants, upon the leaders, its judges, officers, and officials, who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them and understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and happiness and freedom will never depart from our land.
Thank you so much, Anita. Thanks for being part of our service. We're going to continue now with a prayer for the state of Israel. We're on page 178, Avinu Shabbat Shamayim.
Wow, something happened weird. Okay. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael v'goalo, Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Yehudateinu. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael goalo, Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Yehudateinu.
Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, bless the state of Israel, bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
We will continue now with Ashrei, and we have Levi Turbiner with us, who alongside Hazan Mimi is going to lead us in Ashrei, page 181.
Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, O Jechalalu Chasela.
Ashrei Ham Shekacha Lo, Ashrei Am Shiranai Elohav.
Techila LeDavid, Aromimcha Elechaicha Melech, Vavracha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
Bechol Yom Avarchecha V'alala Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Uhulol Meod, Veli Dulato Ein Cheker.
Dor Lador Shabach Ma'asecha Ugrotecha Yagidu.
Hadar Kevod Chodecha, Vedivrei Flotecha Asicha.
Be'ezuz Nerotecha Yomeru Uvladcha Asaprena.
Decherav Tuvecha Yabiu, Betzidkatecha Yaranenu.
Chanun Verachum Adonai, Erech Apayim Ugdal Chased.
Tov Adonai Lakol, Barachamav Kol Ma'asav.
Yoducha Adonai Kol Ma'asecha, V'chasidecha Yevarchucha.
Kevod Malchutecha Yomeru, Ugvurotecha Yadaberu.
Lohodir Livnei Adam Geburotav, Ukfod Hadar Malchuto.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim, Umemshaltecha Bechol Dor Vador.
Somech Adonai L'chol Hanoflim, V'zokef L'chol Hakfufim.
Einecho Elecha Yasaberu, Ve'ata Noten Lachem Etochlam Beito.
Poteach et Yadecha, Umaspir L'chol Chai Ratzon.
Tadik Adonai Bechol Derachav, V'chasif Bechol Ma'asav.
Karov Adonai L'chol Korav, L'chol Asher Yikra'uhu Ve'emet.
Ritzon Yera'av Ya'aseh, Ve'et Shabbatan Yishma V'yoshiem.
Shomer Adonai et Kol Ohavav, Ve'et Kol Rishayim Yashmid.
Ihila Adonai Yedaber Pi, Yivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'anachnu nevarech Ya, Ve'ata Ve'adolam, Hallelujah.
Excellent job, Levi. Thank you for joining us for our service. We are going to open the Ark and return the Torah to the Ark now as we finish our Torah service. Hazan Mimi will lead us in Eitz Chaim Eitz Chaim on page 184.
Eitz Chaim
We'll have some time now to daven the Musaf Amidah. So we'll invite you to rise if you'd like. You can find the Amidah from page 185 to 192. And you should feel free to pray in the English or the Hebrew in the Siddur, or to just take a few minutes. You'll listen to Chazan Stein's beautiful music in the background and take some time to feel present in the moment and for your own personal prayers.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. נעלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, תבל, ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, תבל, ויאמרו אמן.
Kaddish Shalem, page 203.
יתגדל ויגדל שמך רבה, ועלמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמיה ומבורך לעלמי עלמיה, יתברך Yitbarach, v'yishlabach, v'yitbar, v'jubam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei lekudesha, brichu, le'ela min kol b'chata v'shirata, shpachata v'nechamata, damiran v'alma v'yimeru, amen. Zitgabal tzloton v'utahon, l'chovet Yisrael, kodom avahon devishemaya v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shalom arava min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'kol Yisrael v'yimeru, amen. Oseh shalom bimchamav, Yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru, amen.
We have Auden Gordon with us this morning, who's going to lead us in Aleinu. We'll invite you to rise, page 205.
Aleinu leshaber ladon hakol, latekedu aliutzer breshit, shelo asanu kigaye avratso, velo samanu kamichro taha adama, shelo sam helkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kehamana, va'anahnu korim, umishtahavim umodim, lifnei melech, Allahim, Hakadosh, Barehu, Behu Note Shamayim, V'Yoset Aretz, V'Mushav Yikaron, B'Shamayim Yimabo, Regore Meromi, Hu Eloheinu Ein Od, Ememokenu Efezulato, Kakatu, Betorato, Veyadotahayim, Veyashabota, Elevaveha, Ki Adonai, Uet Elohim, Bashamayim Ima'al, Ve'al ha'aretz mi, Dahat, Ein Od, Kakatu, Betorateha, Adonai Yimlo, Le'olam va'ed, V'ne'emar, V'haya Adonai, L'melech al kol ha'aretz, V'yom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad.
We'll ask Temple Aliyah to unmute so we can hear Rabbi Vogel over there.
Hello? Am I there now? All right, there we go. All right, you may be seated, those of you here. Yeah, that will have been just for everybody here in the congregation. That's all right. How did it feel to be here in services today, those of you who are here? Don't you, you forget what it means, it feels like to sing along with people. Right? When you're on Zoom, and those we love you and you're here, but you really can't feel the sense. It's the one drawback in terms of Zooming. You just can't feel that sense of community through singing, and it's just so powerful, those of you who are here. I'm going to share some announcements, and those of you who are on live streaming, if there's anybody who's reciting Kaddish, this is your time that you can Zoom in. You can come into the Zoom room. They'll let you in, and then you can recite Kaddish with us as well. But let me share some announcements. First, I just want to acknowledge Adrian Ross, who just is amazing putting this all together, and you have no idea. Those of you who are here, isn't it a production? I mean, there's so much going on. Those of you, who are out there, just the technical stuff, the seating arrangements, everything. We could not do it without her. Just amazing. Those of you who are going to be joining us in terms of our Kiddush Luncheon, the virtual Kiddush Luncheon, get your lunches ready right after services. You're going to join us. We have a mincha. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, just so you'll know that. We have a mincha bar mitzvah today. Noah Stern, you're invited to join us online as well. Next Shabbat, we have 2 b'nai mitzvah. Tyson Bass, the Bass family, by the way, have been around ever since I got to Temple Aliyah, which is just so wonderful to continue with their next generation. And Brady Leviton in the afternoon for Mincha. So we look forward to sharing with you in the next Shabbat. And Ben Vorspan, our creative director, wants you all to know, this is very, very important, the Aliyah Grand Prix is so much more than a car race. right? With nearly 40 cleverly designed cars already submitted. Mine is one of them, by the way. I won't tell you which one. It's not the one with an Israeli flag, just so you might have thought like, oh, that's definitely Rabbi Vogel. You never know who's that, but not mine, that one. But you just have to be astute, and you'll see mine or not. But with nearly 40 cleverly designed cars already submitted, now is your turn to participate. After Shabbat, did you hear that? I'm reading it. After Shabbat, head over to aliyahRolls.com. aliyahRolls.com. And vote for your favorite cars. You can show your support by being an event sponsor, and even betting on whose cars will beat the clergy. All right, you are allowed to bet against me. Just so you'll know, it's probably an easy bet. I'm just saying. The Aliyah Grand Prix replaces our gala as the biggest fundraising event of the year, so we can really use your help. Like, this is, what a tough year it's been for us. Whatever support you can give, we are greatly appreciative of. So show your support. Come aliyahRolls.com out, and emails. There's going to be lots of information. Ben, was that good? All right. We're going to inspire these people. We want participation. We're here for you no matter what. Even if we're not in the office every day, just send us an email. It's the best way, even better than calling right now. If you want clergy or anybody else here, send an email. We will get back to you quickly. And check your pulse and website and everything for more in-person events. Let me transition now as we allowed some people in our Zoom for Kaddish. This is the moment some of you are here for, frankly, right? To feel this presence of community as you recite the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. So on this Shabbat, remember the yortzites of Celia Campbell, Rose Taub, Daniel Alpert, Abraham Blumenthal, Lena Kleiman, Harriet Radom, Jean Sato, Louis Sensieb, Eileen Zimet, Dorothy Engel, Daniel Leibel, Nathan Lubell, Yona Mandel, Leo Mansky, Iraj Omrani, Joyce Reisman, Lloyd Tassoff, Julian Arowesti, Deborah Klotchman, Dora Malovich, Miriam Malovich, Ike Cohn, Dorothy Fagan, Gerald Garnett, Peter Kovezdi, Harry Shopler, Sheldon Schuster, Naum Tabachnik, Harry Ellsberg, Molly Hart, Francis Kessler, Lorraine Crone, Gertrude Meyer, Beth Pressman, Marta Savage, May Shear, Sylvia Sokol, Dorothy Watman, James Bachner, Sarah Collin, Gary Frieden, Ida Rodich, Stephen Comreich, and Al Epstein. We're also mindful of passing this week of Stuart Dater, the brother of Annie Dater of blessed memory. Her brother passed away, very sad, shared with the family, condolences to the Dater family. And we mourn the passing of Jan Wayne, mother of Lenny and Robin Wayne, and to the Wayne family, our condolences as well. Those of you reciting Mourner's Kaddish, if you're here in the sanctuary, we invite you to rise, page 207. If you're at home, you can rise as well. If you, by the way, are in live streaming and your site, just call out the name right now. Right, just acknowledge, right, that relationship of the words you're about to recite. Those of you who are on Zoom, you can unmute for this part, and we just do our best to make this work so that you can hear the sense of community as well. Those of you reciting Kaddish, join together with me. Yit
Gadal, Gadal Shemei Rabbah.
Be'alma, Ayechon, Yomechon, Beit Israel, Bagal,
Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Nevara Alam Amen Amen.
Barak
V'ishtabach V'itpa'ah V'yitmama V'yitnaseh V'yitada V'yitaleh Shmei Dekudesh Abrechu Le'ela min kol berchata Shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Yelma Yelma Yelu Amen. Hey Shlama Rabba Min Shemayim B'chayim Aleinu Yalko Yisrael Ve'yimru Amen. Say Shalom Roma Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Yalko Yisrael Ve'yimru Amen.
Those of you on Zoom, if you would mute yourselves this time, may God who establishes peace in the heavens grant peace and harmony for us, for all of Israel and all of humanity, as we say, Amen. At this time, those of you live streaming, if you want to join us and for Kiddush and Motzi on Zoom and then virtual Kiddush lunch as well, now's the time. Go to Zoom, come on in, and we're going to begin the Kiddush and Motzi. Those of you who are here, I want you to rise. By the way, if you have someone next to you in your pod, you can put your arm around them. Feel that love now. We're going to begin with V'shamru Chazan. Mimi's going to begin.
Kein berach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat v'yikadshehu savri chaverai.
Chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hazofen.
Amen. My turn now for Netilat Yadayim and for Motzi. So I'll do for all of you. If you're at home, then you're doing this as well. In ancient times, you always had to be in a pure state to approach the altar. Now that's the table which we eat at. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yisham mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. All right. Allah. Here we go. Let's imagine. Oh, it smells so good, guys. I'm not making you hungry or anything, but it does smell really good. Here you go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.